Welcome to the Hembury Books Podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Holly Deane-Johns, who was the first author to ever publish a book with Hembury Books, and that was Holly's Hell, which came out on the 8th of February 2024. In 2000, Holly was caught trying to post 15 grams of heroin in Bangkok and was sentenced to 31 years. Her book, Holly's Hell, describes the years she spent inside the notorious Thai prison and how she overcame her drug addiction. Holly is a speaker and community advocate on topics that include substance abuse, PTSD, mental health, and domestic violence. Thanks a lot for talking to us, Holly.
Hi, Jess. Thanks for having me back on.
How many of these interviews have you done since you published your book a year ago, like at a guess?
Oh, look, I wouldn't even be able to take a guess. It's been that many. Because as you know, I was travelling to Adelaide, Sydney, Melbourne. I was travelling all over the place, just doing radio, podcast, TV. So, it's been a lot.
I reckon it's over 100.
Oh, for sure.
Amazing. So, how you and I talk all the time, let's be frank.
Yeah.
But for the viewers, how has life been since you published a book?
As you know, and a few other people would know if they've followed our story, I reached out to a publishing house and got my first rejection. It was a big publishing house. And as fate would have it, you and I were put together. And I'm so thankful for that, because honestly, that was the best thing to ever happen professionally for me and for you. You know, as soon as we met, it had been like we'd known each other forever. You and I worked so easily together. So look, you know, getting this book published through Hembury Books was absolutely amazing, and I wouldn't have had it any other way. You know, as you know, I've also put a friend of mine to you. You've also published her book, and she's absolutely ecstatic as well with the professionalism that she's got through working with you. Yeah, look, I couldn't have asked for anybody better, to be honest.
Well, I was thinking about it today, and I feel like we changed each other's lives. Like, you changed my life and I changed your life, because you know, you were my first client out of the gates, and I knew the moment I got the Facebook message from you, well, from our mutual friend saying, you know, Holly spent 7 years in a Thai prison, and I had visited that prison. And then, we just connected. You flew across to Sydney from Perth, and I thought, this woman is serious about her book. You know, she's talk about, you know, showing up, as they say. And then, you know, and it was really fun working with you, getting the book out, and we worked super closely. I mean, I didn't have anyone else working with me at that time. Like, it was only me. And then you hired Nicole, the publicist, and then it just kind of went gangbusters, didn't it? And it's never really stopped.
Yeah, that's right, Jess. Look, after, you know, the book came out and everything, there was a lot of interest from, all over the place, to be honest, as you know. And, hiring Nicole, that was, again, another thing that worked really well in my favour, because with the connections that Nicole has and the reach that she has, I was just inundated with, you know, engagements, and, you know, sometimes, it was too much to handle after a couple of months, and that's when I had to employ a VA to take over my diary.
And now we share the lovely May, who's both our assistants. So
we do, a great decision and money well spent, for sure. If I didn't have Nicole, I'm sure I would have got interest, but just having her feelers and the reach that she had, that just opened up a whole new door, really, for me.
Yeah, I mean, top tier media. Let's talk about some of the media you've been on, because Nicole would she started sending out pictures, and then she'd start saying, oh, they're interested. And then we just got all these emails. Women's Weekly. I remember the excitement when the BBC reached out to me, the BBC World Service. I literally almost fell out of bed. They were like, we'd love to interview Holly. and it all went ahead and was published and was amazing. The project, you're on the project. Take that, or Take 5. Like, so many. Have I missed some big ones?
Look, as we said earlier, there's been that many. It's hard to even remember. It's just been that flat out.
Well, I went with you to ABC Studios. That was fun. Again, you flew across when you were filming the project, and you stayed at my place. And then we went early in the morning to the ABC Studios, and you did breakfast TV. That was very exciting for me.
Yeah, definitely. Look, most of these things were a first for me and for you, I suppose. So, yeah, being able to share some of those moments together was just unbelievable, because it's both our project.
Yeah, very much. A shared sense of pride. And, you have an extraordinary story, and you are an extraordinary person, having overcome everything that you have, and to still be walking and thriving is why so many people, it's lit up in the way that it has. How, do you feel different as an author? Because maybe you could tell people about, you knew you were going to write a book from the moment you were arrested, but it did take a long time. And is there a sense of personal satisfaction now that, it's complete, you've achieved it?
Excuse me. Oh, yeah, look, definitely. I started writing the book the first day I was arrested in Thailand. I just knew, I don't know how I knew, but I just knew that I would write about my experience one day. Look, it did take a very long time to get the book to the point of being able to be published. But, that was because, many times it was very hard to sit down and write, just having to remember things and, go to that place in my head. It was very difficult. So, yeah, that's one of the reasons why it took as long as it did. But, I could still be writing that book today. There's always something to say. There's always something to add on, but there had to be an end point.
Yeah. And the thing is, you've published the book and you give so many talks that not having told every single thing in that book, right, means that you've got stuff that you can say to people, I've never told you this before, or, so they may have read the book, but they're still learning more about you when they listen to a podcast or, go and see you speak at a library or something.
Oh, 100%. I think I think it's important to withhold things, because you've still got things to talk about. As you said, you've still got things to surprise people with. It'd be no fun doing a podcast with somebody if they already knew what I was going to say. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's important as well. Yeah.
Before you published your book, you were working in FIFO, which I didn't know that term at the time, fly in, fly out of the mines in Western Australia. Do you want to tell people about when your colleagues found out that you were Holly Deane-Johns?
Yeah, so I'd worked FIFO for about 4 years, and, everyone I worked with, nobody knew my past. So, and I discussed this with you as well, that I was very nervous about posting my first ever post about my story. Okay, I've published the book, this is me. So, I was quite nervous about that, because, you don't know how people are going to react. But I was very lucky in the sense that everybody was very supportive. Everybody was very stunned. Nobody could believe that I had lived that type of life. But I didn't get any negative feedback. I only got, great positive feedback, which was really nice.
See, that's something that authors often mention to me. They feel a bit apprehensive about kind of bearing their soul, right? And you did bear your soul, and you don't, as you say from the start, you're not seeking pity. That's not the reason why you did the book. So it's great that people have been, so supportive and inspired. It is a really inspiring story as well.
Oh, for sure, Jess, and that's something that comes up very, very often when I do interviews with people, the fact that I haven't told my story for pity. I don't want anyone's pity. I did what I did. I did break the law. But, the reason why I felt it was important to be 110% honest was, well, what's the point in getting my story out there if I'm not being honest? There are parts of, there are things I've said in the book that I cringe at and, what have you. But that was my life. That was me. That was who I was at that time as a heroin addict. And I think the funny thing is, once everybody knew who I was and what my life had been, maybe that's one reason why they were and are still supportive, because they actually knew me for who I am now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. It does make sense. And tell us about your work at the moment. So you left FIFO and you're doing something that interests you a lot more.
Yeah, so what I'm doing at the moment, and I've just gone full-time doing it, is I'm what they call a peer worker at an organisation that deals with people who are on, they've been arrested for whatever reasons, whether it's been because of drugs, alcohol, domestic violence, it can be whatever. So they come to us. It's a voluntary program which runs for 12 weeks. They can leave at any time if they want to. So they come weekly, they have a caseworker who they do counselling with, they address any issues that they may want to address in their life. And I'm a peer worker, which means that I've had lived experience with all of these things. So these men and women can ring me anytime, I can meet with them, I can sit down with them to give them advice, to be a shoulder to lean on, pretty much whatever they need, I'm there for them. And it's really great because they know I can relate to what they're going through. Even though the caseworkers are amazing at what they do, I just bring a different facet, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look, I absolutely love my work. I love my job. I love the people that I work with. I'm doing what I really love to do, and that's help people.
Do you think that's become possible partly because of the book? Like that's opened up different kinds of professional opportunities?
100%. Even though I've got the experience I've got and have lived the life I've lived, without the book, I think it would have been a lot harder to get my story out there. Yeah, my story would have got out there, but not to the masses that it has. So yeah, it definitely has helped. My life, my work, helped to get my message out there. Oh, definitely.
That's amazing. I've had a few instances now where, like I should have my books, the Hembury Books behind me, and I showed the accountant your book, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I know that book." And then a photographer was like, "Oh yeah, I know that book." And it happens all the time. People are like, "I know that book." And that you cross the threshold, which is what every author wants to do, is to get their book out into the public, in a really sort of deep way that, it's kind of that critical mass. And like now, I saw just before you've got a talk at the library next weekend and you've got all sorts of things coming up. Are the inquiries coming to you, or are you reaching out? Are you still proactive in maintaining that?
Yeah, look, as you know, Jess, I'm very hands-on. I still actively, seek out work. But I also am on a platform, one of them being Crowd Pleaser, and I've actually had people reach out to me from that platform, which has been great.
Okay, terrific. What about the other speaker platforms? I did some work with you to get you signed up to them, but have they actually, bear fruit?
Not yet.
They're really
I think,
Phil.
Sorry?
They've just got too many people on them, I think, to stand out maybe.
100%. Look, there's that many people on all these different things. It is hard to stand out, and somebody really has to be looking for a particular type of person who talks about a particular type of thing. So look, I would say to people, look, get on everything you can get on. If you're not on there, you don't have a chance.
Yeah, that's a good attitude to life.
Yeah.
So we have established that your book has been very successful. What was some of the feedback you got from traditional publishers about why they did not wish to publish the book?
Well, I only reached out to one publisher. There wasn't really, they don't really give you too much feedback, if any at all. Which was why you and I coming together when we did, it was just perfect timing, because after that one knockback, I would have kept applying to different places, but I don't know, it was like, it was meant to be you and I. It was like, you know what, Jess has come into my life, she's a publisher, I'm just going to do it. I don't want to wait anymore. This story's been too long waiting already. It needs to be done now.
She has no track record and she's never published a book, but
well, hey, there's a first for everything, and if you don't,
it's my book. So, but you were very trusting. But didn't the publisher that you did get feedback from say, "Oh, you came out of prison too long ago, you know, your moment's past," kind of thing, and you were like, "Well, I had PTSD and my husband passed away, and so this is when I'm now able to tell my story"?
Yeah, sorry, Jess. Yeah, no, you were right. That was one of the reasons they gave, that I was released too long ago and that my story probably wouldn't be relevant anymore, which I found really strange, because I still read biographies of people that have written a book 30 years ago. There is no time limit on a book, on a story. So I found that very, very strange.
I find that very strange too. Yeah. Do you have, from the past year looking back, like a moment that was just really cool and made you really happy?
Oh, look, again, Jess, there's too many to count. Like, there really is. You know, since this book's come out, you know, every day something amazing happens. You know, being on the project, that was amazing, because I actually watched that show.
Were you sitting in the makeup chair because they did your hair and makeup, and you stayed at the hotel and stuff? That must have been pretty cool.
It was. And, you know, sitting down and meeting Waleed, like, what a great guy. He even got on the piano after we stopped shooting and played a bit of piano. Just really surreal stuff, you know, the Carrie Bickmore and Tommy Little show, you know, on the radio. I listen to them every day driving home. So to be able to sit in a studio with them and have a chat and a laugh, and then, you know, once the radio's turned off, we still sit there having a chat. Like, that was great. You know, I've met two amazing, funny people that I listen to every day. There's been a lot of wow moments, but, you know, the thing that happens probably on a daily basis for me is when I'm looking on social media, I get messages from all over the world from people, and that really makes me feel good. They've all been positive, you know, things like, "I'm so glad I read your book. I also was in jail. This is in America. I was also a heroin addict. Reading your book, I could really relate to a lot of the struggles that I went through personally." I get a lot of stories like that, a lot of messages, and it just makes me feel good to know that I am touching people's hearts. I am giving hope to people that thought there was none. And that's what I see as well when I go and give talks. You know, if I'm talking to drug addicts, they'll come up to me after and say, "Wow, I didn't think there was any hope for me, but you did it." And I said, "Well, yeah, I was once you. You don't have to stay where you are now. You can get out." So that type of thing just makes me feel really, really happy.
Yeah, that is amazing. And in terms of kind of reclaiming your power and telling your story, a book is a good way of doing that, isn't it? When you've had such low lows in life and you've been treated like shit by, you know, the screws, for example, does it kind of give you this sense like you've taken back the power of your life to tell your story? Because the media told your story for a long time, didn't they?
Yeah, and I was actually telling this story the other day, and I've told you this story as well. You know, when I finally got out of jail and I was on parole for 5 years, the first time I went to sign in for my parole, I still remember like it was yesterday. He said to me, "Oh, you won't be on parole for long. You'll be back in jail before you know it." And I said, "Excuse me?" And he says, "Well, I know your sister and your brothers, and they were never out of prison for long. I said, how dare you say that to me? I said, I can't even believe you said that to me. And anyway, I left it at that. 5 years later, I said, well, how wrong were you? And he said, I apologise. And I said, you can't stereotype people. Not everybody's the same. Some people do manage to change and, make a different life for themselves. But, I find that, 99% of people who were in my position or who are now, they're stereotyped. And that's just so wrong. People can and do change. One of the reasons I was knocked back to come home on a transfer treaty, one of the reasons given was that I was likely to reoffend when I was released. Well, hello, I didn't reoffend. I've never used drugs again. So, how wrong was that assumption?
Yeah, you had to really fight to get back to Australia, didn't you? It took so much longer than it normally would for Australia too. And that was the 7 years that you did in Thailand. And then it was another 5 that you did in Western Australia.
Yeah, it took me it took me an extra four years to get home. Because of, these assumptions that people had made on me that, I'd come back and reoffend and use drugs again and all this type of thing. Well, I didn't.
Do you still think about the prison in Thailand frequently?
Oh, look, for sure, Jess, and I'm sure I always will, because that was a very large part of my life. And, that was where I started to come undone mentally. That was where my PTSD started from. So, yeah, that was a huge part of my life. And I think I'll always think of that place every day.
Yeah. We got very close with Nicole Webb, thanks to her amazing work, to getting you taken back to the prison in Thailand to film a 60-minute segment. And unfortunately, it didn't materialize, but we got very close. And we know that the prison wardens actually were given a copy of your book, and maybe they read it and said, nah, we probably. But did that feel good, knowing that the people who had, tortured you, on a daily basis, mentally and physically and emotionally and everything, that they had read your story and had a mirror held up to their behaviour?
Look, I'm sure that was the reason why the 60-minute episode didn't go ahead, because, one of the conditions was, like you just said, that they were able to read the book first before making a decision. Look, I don't think that would have really been a mirror for them, that they would have really made. It wouldn't have mattered to them. That's how jail is in Thailand. That's how you're treated in Thailand. It's always been that way, and I'm sure will always be that way. So for them, I don't think it was any big discovery of, this, how wrong are we to treat people this way and not to give people any duty of care. That's just how it is there.
But you got them.
I did. I did. Yeah. Look, I hope things change over there. I really do, because nobody deserves to live like an animal. Yeah. And be treated like an animal.
I think the human rights still need to be protected while in prison, and they're not. Like, they're falling short in so many ways. Now, I just have a couple more questions. So with Hembury Books, you have kept all your royalties and you've had the creative control and freedom to do whatever you wish with your book. Like, you tell me if something awesome happens, Nicole shares it, but it's your book and you own that. How has that worked out for you in terms of what you've been able to do with your book?
Oh, look, it's been great. Not only that, having self-published, I get to keep, all the royalties. Like, that's great. Which, as you know, also I donate $1 from each book I sell to a drug rehab over here. I'm glad to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it also gives me the freedom of people. Like if I went with the publishing house, for example, I don't really have any freedom of what happens. Do you know what I mean?
Mm, mm.
Yeah, but with my book, I get to, you know, say, oh, okay, no, I don't want to talk about that, or no, that's not right, or I can keep things real.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's good and that's important. Did everything turn out as you hoped it would?
And more, much more. Yeah, you know, you and I have talked about all of these things before, you know, like you and I couldn't believe just how much everything blew up as soon as the book got out. Like it was unbelievable. Yeah, I certainly didn't think it would go that big, that quick. I don't think you did. Yeah, and when certain people reached out, you and I were like little kids, you know, oh my God, you know. Yeah, look, very exciting ride. And, you know, whoever publishes with you, they're only going to get the best. And, you know, if people have as great as experience as I did, you can't get better than that.
That's so nice. Thanks, Holly.
But it's true.
That's very nice. And also that you said it was true. If you had a tip for other authors who want to make their book successful, what would your advice be?
Go with Hembury Books. That would be my first advice, like really. Look, the big thing for me, Jess, with going with you was you really worked with me. You were happy to work with my beliefs, my principles. Even though you might have had opinions that were different to mine, you let me be true to myself and true to my story, even if you didn't agree with certain things that I wanted to do or say. For me, that was really important. Yeah, I just really have gone with my heart through this whole thing, and you've let me do that. And I think that's really important when you're looking for a publisher. You don't want to be micromanaged.
No,
No.
not a full arrangement. Yeah. What is next for Holly Deane-Johns?
Oh, look, what's next? Well, I've just gone full time with my job. I was part time, and I'm like, you know what? No, I have to go full time. Work's getting a lot more busier, which is great. Yeah, I've got a few talks lined up now for throughout the year. Look, my goal, Jess, is to just keep working, doing what I love. But ultimately, I really want to get out there and do more public speaking. That's, you know, that's a huge passion of mine as well, to get out there and talk to people who need to hear about my story.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get bigger and bigger stages for you to walk upon and talk upon. Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Holly. That was amazing.
No worries. Thanks, Jess.